Years ago, a journey began to bring a story of unrivaled distinction to our screens. It catalogued the remarkable life of Bass Reeves, an African-American man who rose from slave to trailblazer with nothing but his skill and strength of spirit. But like many exceptional Black historical figures, his name faded into obscurity and was almost forgotten until now, when actor David Oyelowo finally succeeded in bringing to life the story of the greatest lawman of the Old West in the new limited series, LAWMEN, Bass Reeves.
You a lawman or an outlaw?
Bit of both, I reckon.
I need a man with a good gun and a straight spine. You up for the task?
I wouldn't be sitting here my Sunday best if I wasn't.
Getting Bass Reeves to our TV screens was a long time in the making, with many failing in their attempts before David took up the mantle. But when Taylor Sheridan joined the project, being a TV Western creator with a Midas touch, having created hit shows like Yellowstone with Kevin Costner, 1923 with Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren, and 1883 with Sam Elliott and Tim McGraw, David had an influential ally that agreed telling this story on the scale it deserved was long overdue.
Hi, David. Lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I'm Judita DaSilva from Arise News, Nigeria. I'll get straight in because I know you're tight on time. When this project first came into your orbit, it was back in 2014. And you stayed with it, and it's now almost a decade, and it's come to fruition. We have LAWMEN, Bass Reeves. In entertainment, we know that the life cycle of a TV or movie project is normally around 3 to 4 years. So what was it about this project that kept you on the hook for this long?
When it was brought to me, exactly as you say, in 2014, I just couldn't believe that in the over 100 years since Bass Reeves was walking this earth, there hadn't been a TV show, there hadn't been a movie. His name wasn't on the tip of every Western lover's tongue. And on top of all of that, having grown up wanting to be a cowboy as a kid, playing all those games, doing what, young boys of my age back then did, there was this guy who I could have been looking up to the whole time. Forget Billy the Kid. This is my guy. And so in many ways, I stuck with it because I wanted to gift this to my 6-year-old self who hadn't been able to see this image and this magnificent man who, to be honest, is so much more impressive than those other guys. He's going from enslavement, the most horrendous situation arguably you could find yourself in as a human being, to empowerment, and someone who has a moral compass, who loves his family, who is a champion for justice. I just think that, to me, is what a true hero looks like.
Born a slave, then conscripted into the Confederate Army, Bass Reeves eventually escaped and found shelter among indigenous people, and then went on to be deputized as a U.S. Marshal, a job that saw him capture over 3,000 outlaws without ever sustaining an injury. With the silver star on his chest and mounted atop a white horse, many believe he was a true inspiration for the famous Lone Ranger. It is no surprise Bass Reeves' story captured David Oyelowo and never let go.
Around these parts, we might be men. They're just killers. All thieves. I took an oath to protect everyone. I ain't about to quit this.
You find a home for yourself? What would you do to hold on to it, to protect it?
You got to the count of 5 to get the hell off my land.
Lady, you got 2 shells in that bird killer.
Then I just shoot you twice, just to be certain.
So that, just picking up on that point, when I read about this, every single Black person I talked to about Bass Reeves, including myself, had no idea who he was. Then you do the research, and like you said, his story is so remarkable, it's breathtaking. So what do you think contributed to someone as historically significant and individually excellent as him falling through the cracks of history the way he has done until now?
It's racism. There's no way of spinning it another way. If he were a white character having achieved half of what Bass Reeves did, kids would be dressing up as him during Halloween ever since. So it's that, it's no secret that our stories tend to be marginalized, undervalued, misrepresented, or put on the periphery. And that's why I was just so determined. I took the show out twice, once in 2015, again in 2017. Every studio, every TV show turned it down. So Morgan Freeman was trying to get this story told for 25 years. That's Morgan Freeman, so that there can be only one reason why the story was resisted. And I also think it's because he's an inspirational, aspirational character. We all know the power that comes with that kind of representation, and that power is often resisted. But in my view, there's space for everyone to be those things, and that's why, for me, it was just so important for us to get this done.
Westerns are classic entertainment. Young Guns, Tombstone, Wyatt Earp. But Westerns have always had a formula that glorified brotherhood among white men, something Bass Reeves, as the solitary force of nature that he was, challenged in every way.
When looking at stories of the Old West, there's always the partnership or the collective, whether it's Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday or Billy the Kid and the Regulators. But with Bass Reeves, he's notably so singular. Do you think that's because doing what he did at the time he did, with the people that he did, being a Black man of that time, it's life and death. So either you rely on yourself or your people. So it was a choice that he had to make in the interest of himself.
I think anyone can understand that, coming out of enslavement and how degrading a circumstance that is. Your trust levels are going to be at an all-time low, even with the fact that you've been empowered. When Donald Sutherland's character, Judge Isaac Parker, deploys him as a deputy U.S. Marshal, there is distrust in his heart. For Bass, he represents the demographic of person who traditionally has raped, pillaged, and tried to destroy his people. What does it now mean that you are the one putting me out there as a so-called purveyor of justice? And so I think for him, his faith in God, his family, those are the things that he can hold on to, and those are his North Star. And that's what we really tried to have be central in the story. He does, as the show carries on, he does bring on a posse man called Billy Crow, as played by Forrest Goodluck. And where some of Bass's trust, I believe, is renewed is he escaped into Indian territory after beating his enslaver almost to death, and knowing that his life would be at risk if he stayed anywhere near where that had happened. And those skills, the tracking skills that he uses as a lawman, were learned from Native Americans. And I think that's why he gravitates towards them, because they share some pain in relation to, the Native Americans had their land stolen from them. The Africans were stolen from their land to cultivate America. And so that shared experience, if you like, I think is what engendered a bit of trust.
How do I get to do what you do?
You're loyal, and you ain't afraid of much. But the real power lies beneath the badge. Ready to ride?
I thought you'd never ask.
As an actor, David is no stranger to playing historical figures from African American history, having played arguably the most famous one of all, Martin Luther King, in the biographical drama Selma. So Bass Reeves was enticing rather than intimidating, whether or not naysayers questioned a Nigerian-British actor in an African American role.
But just those points that you make about all the stuff that went into it. So just within you as David, so you've got Nigerian accent, British accents, doing an American accent on the show, learning Native American dialects while riding horses, shooting guns, with the weight of African American history on your shoulders, with the rhetoric that has gone on for years about British actors are taking American parts when they're limited for African Americans. Did your mind ever just reach critical mass where you just wanted to have a cup of tea and say, leave me alone for a bit?
No, I ignore all of that. I know who I am. I know that slavery was an attempt to destroy Black people, destroy our identity. And I am as connected to African Americans as I am to Africans. The only thing that came along to put a demarcation between us was slavery. And that was something imposed upon us. So I choose not to own that. Anyone who comes to me and saying, should you be playing this role? I'll say, please don't buy into that lie. We are connected. Go and do your 23andMe, and then let's talk about how connected we actually are. And my job as an actor is not to play myself. So yes, I am of Nigerian descent. I lived there for a lot of my life, lived in the UK for a lot of my life, now lived in America for a lot of my life. I own my membership, my citizenship of all of those places, but it served me so well as an actor who doesn't want to play himself. I want to play Europeans, Africans, Americans, and I'm just very blessed that I get to do that.
Well, David, all I can say is keep doing great work. Congratulations on the series, and you're doing Nigeria proud, so carry on.
Thank you. That means so much to me. Thank you.
When all is said and done, in the fullness of time, the Library of Entertainment can look back on the work David Oyelowo did to bring this series to life and take note that it serves as a permanent reminder for generations to come that in the long history of the marshals of America's Old West, the boldest, the brightest, and the best was a Black man named Bass Reeves.